This started about 24 years ago. I'm not even sure, 23, 24 years ago. I had a couple of my friends come over, and it was one of those times where you're going through life and you're going through college and you're broke and you really, I'd love to buy my friends something for Christmas, and I didn't have any money, so I said, okay guys, come over, I want to read y'all a story. And I made some salsa and some chips, and I got some ham, made a ham, and so we had this whole little tradition that started that then, and some friends of mine called me the next year and said, man, do you mind, let's get together and read that story again. So we've done it every year for a long time, and for those of you who are newcomers to it, we're going to read you a quick little story. It doesn't take that long, but it truly is about the spirit of the season and why don't we celebrate this time of year. So without any further ado, I would like to actually take 1 second to say thank y'all all very much for being close friends of mine, because everybody that's here means a lot to me. There's some of you that I may have just met, but if you mean something to Terry, you mean something to me. Where's the one that was out of the fold? Yeah. But in all sincerity, I did have a close brush with death this year, and it really does make you realize what's important, and what is most important in life is your friends and your family. So thank y'all all for being part of mine. Without any further ado, we're going to read a story. On a cold winter night in 1741, an elderly stoop-shouldered man ambled listlessly along a dark London street. George Frederick Handel was starting one of the aimless, despondent wanderings which had become a nightly ritual for him. As he walked, his tortured mind flitted between the memories of past glories and the hopeless despair of the future. For 4 decades, Handel had written music which had won him the adulation of aristocracy of England and the continent. A favorite of royalty, he had been showered with many honors, and then, abruptly, court society had turned upon him. His once famous operas were broken up by gangs of rowdies. It was only a matter of time until Handel was reduced to abject poverty. A cerebral hemorrhage paralyzed his right side. He was unable to walk. He could not move his right hand or write a note. Doctors could give him no hope for recovery. The old composer went to the La Chapelle to take the baths. In spite of the doctor's warnings that staying in the scalding waters longer than 3 hours at a time would kill him, Handel stayed in for 9 hours at a stretch. Gradually, inert muscles took on new life. He began to walk. His hand lost its paralysis. As his health returned, Handel began working again. In a frenzy of creativeness, he wrote 4 operas in quick succession. Again, he found himself the recipient of many honors, and again, the hand of fate struck a cruel blow. Queen Caroline, who had long been his patroness, died. Handel's income was immediately reduced. England found herself in the grip of such a bitter winter that fuel could not be wasted on heating the theaters. All engagements were canceled. Handel lived for a while on the money borrowed from friends. As he sank deeper into debt, he lost his creative spark. He felt old, tired, and hopelessly beaten. On this night, as he tramped restlessly along the deserted street, he paused for a moment before the dark outline of a church. In the bitter self-pity, he pondered his situation. Why had God permitted his creativeness to be restored, only to let it be torn once again from his grasp? Head bent against the sting of an icy wind, he made his way back to his humble room. As he pushed open the door, he saw a package lying on the table. Tearing off the wrappings, he saw that it was a text of a musical composition. It was entitled, A Sacred Oratorio. Y'all got to bear with me here, I've got to adjust these glasses. I'm trying to that in the light boat, trying to work with it. Handel grunted contemptuously as he saw that it was from a second-rate poet, Charles Jennings. The note added if Handel would start work immediately on the oratorio. A postscript added the information that the Lord gave the word. Handel leaped indifferently through the oratorio. Suddenly a passage held his eye. He was despised and rejected of men. He looked for someone who would have pity upon him, but there was no man. Neither found he any to comfort him. A sense of kinship warmed Handel's heart. He read on. He trusted in God. God did not leave his soul in hell. He will give you rest. The words burning in his consciousness began to take on new meaning. I know my Redeemer liveth. Rejoice. Hallelujah. The old fire that inspired the rulers of Europe began to rekindle. Wondrous melodies bubbled up from the seething cauldron of his mind. He grabbed a pen from the table and started writing. With unbelievable swiftness, his notes filled page after page. His manservant found him the next morning, still bent over the makeshift desk, still writing. Noiselessly, he put down his breakfast tray and slipped quietly away. When he returned at noon, the tray had not been touched. For days, the old servant watched anxiously over his master. Handel refused food. He wrote continuously. Sometimes he would pause, striding up and down, flailing the air with his arms. When he finished the triumphant climax of the Hallelujah chorus, tears were streaming down his cheeks. I did think I did see all heaven before me and see great God himself, he told his servant. Handel labored like a man possessed for 23 days. Then he collapsed in his bed, exhausted, and slept for 17 hours. On his desk lay the score of the greatest oratorio ever written, the Messiah. Really worried now, Handel's servant sent for the doctor. But before the physician arrived, the composer was sitting up, yelling for food. He eased his hunger by wolfing down a ham. That's why we have a ham. Washing it down with tankards of ale, which is why there's plenty to drink here. Then he lit his pipe and he joked with the amazed doctor. We will have some cigars later. Although Handel was sure that he had composed a masterpiece, London would have no part of it. So he took the Messiah to Ireland at the personal invitation of Lord Lieutenant ONeals. Handel insisted that the proceeds of his performance must go to charity. Arriving in Dublin, Handel lost no time urging two choirs and beginning rehearsals. So many tickets were sold for the first performance that notices were sent out in the newspapers begging the ladies not to wear their hoop skirts to the concert and the men to leave their swords at home. On April the 13th, which is kind of a famous day in our life now, 1742, crowds waited at the theater doors hours before the opening. The response was tumultuous. Even Handel was awestruck by his creation. After his Dublin triumph, London began begging to hear the work. It was during the first London performance that a strange thing happened. The audience, carried away with the power of the Hallelujah chorus and following the King's example, arose in unison as though by some prearranged signal. Since then, audiences the world over have expressed a similar respect by rising at the onset of this chorus and remaining standing until its conclusion. For the remainder of Handel's life, he presented the Messiah annually. All the proceeds went to the foundling hospital. And in his will, he bequeathed the royalties of his work to the same charity. Handel once more ran the gamut of misfortune. But never again did he permit despair to get the upper hand. Age robbed him of his vitality. He went blind. But his unflagging spirit never wavered. On the evening of April the 6th, 1759, Handel was 74. He attempted a performance of the Messiah. Suddenly he collapsed. He was taken home and put to bed. His spirit was still valiant, but his flesh was beginning to weaken. I should like to die on Good Friday, he announced to his friends. And on April the 13th, the anniversary of the first presentation of the Messiah, in accordance with his wish, the great composer's soul left his body forever. For 200 years now, his spirit has gone marching on in the Messiah, an international symbol of the triumph of hope over despair. For the genius of his pen lighted a torch that has brought illumination to the dark places of the earth. Wherever there are voices that will sing and hearts to beat with courage. Thank you all very much for being part of it. May the spirit of the season be with you.